And I remember just grinning from ear to ear at the challenge. And that feeling lasted for about one day
Yeah.
in the truck.
Yeah.
How do I deal with this? Life is getting hard. And the answer is always become stronger. That's the only way to overcome. You have to become stronger.
When you stop fearing loss of money as a repercussion because you realize that you're protecting something greater that actually was the reason the money came in the first place, then it's a lot easier to make good decisions.
Welcome to the $100 Million Mindset, the source for business owners who aspire to scale, grow, and reach their full potential. Whether you're aiming for 5 million, 10 million, or 100 million. Your hosts are Alan O'Neill, the Irish plumber, who scaled Abacus Plumbing and Cooling to over 100 million, and Two Lattes, Todd, Liles, a coach to high-performing business leaders and the owner of Service Excellence, are going to help you think bigger, act smarter, and take your business to the next level.
Steve Egner is a seasoned home services entrepreneur with over 45 years in plumbing. Originally from Texas, he moved to Washington and founded Steve's Plumbing in 1995. Over the years, he's built a $7 million company with strong profitability, averaging 12% profit margins and over $700,000 in revenue per truck. His journey is one of unwavering integrity, strategic leadership, and long-term growth. Steve has weathered major business storms, including firing an entire high-performing department due to drug use, choosing values over short-term revenue. His commitment to strong leadership and culture has positioned his company for sustained success. Outside of business, Steve and his wife Rachel enjoy global travel and adventure. Steve has cycled the Tour de France route, trekked to Everest Base Camp, and spent months exploring Europe. Meanwhile, Rachel is a world-class competitive rower. Through smart leadership and systemization, they have achieved a rare combination of financial success and personal freedom.
Welcome, brother. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, guys.
Man, it's
Thanks for that
awesome.
introduction.
Well, it's all true and more that we couldn't even fully get into the whole story here. So we had to keep it somewhat brief. You know, going to Rachel being a world-class rower, I was telling Alan that I got my new ski erg and I set it up and I aggressively rode my fastest 1 minute time. And I said, oh, look, hey, 342, I'm 42 meters off the pace. And then we looked again and I was 60 something meters off the pace. And she casually wrote back, it's like, oh, yeah, I got the 1 minute and the 4 minute and the 100 meter and the 500 meter. And I think she rattled off like 10 championships, or
Crazy.
world records, I should say. It's like going, yeah. But this show that we're doing, Steve, is called the 100 Million Mindset, the $100 million Mindset. And it's really about two things. It's about the mind of a person who has big goals, the way that they think. It's actually not necessarily about reaching 100 million, although we've talked to many that have. It's actually about reaching a level of personal success. And having been to Hawaii with you guys and having hung out with y'all, I wanted to bring you on as my friend because I think that you guys do personal freedom and life and business just about as well as anyone. So, and actually, most of the day's questions are going to be coming from Alan because you and I see each other so much, and I wanted to have Alan a chance to catch up with you today. So, Alan, I'm going to turn it over to you.
It's just because I know how to speak plumber.
Is that what it
That's
is?
what it is. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
what it is.
100%. Yeah. Well, I know how to speak Texan.
Yeah.
By the way, Steve, I just took him to the Salt Lick, so
All's good. Yeah. If I fall asleep during this, Steve, it's all Salt Lake's fault. Okay. Yeah.
I'll understand.
Yeah. So, Steve, let's start with the moment when you fired an entire department. Most business owners would hesitate. Why was it a non-negotiable for you?
It was a lot of information that came to a head all very quickly over a short span of time. We actually found drug use, theft, dishonesty, disrespect of customers, theft of equipment, and so those things all combined, it left me with a decision to start over. At one point, I confess way back, leading up to that point in, I think it was 2015, at one point, I felt like managing this group of high performers was a lot like or analogous to management of an NFL football team. And my history as an NFL fan had shown a lot of coloring outside the lines is a nice way to put it, or just corrupt behavior within the ranks of players. And so I was willing to tolerate a lot until it got to a point where I realized this is now going outside my business. That's my name on the side of the truck. That's my family's reputation. And if I ever want to control it, then I need to take the reins in. So we let those guys go. They were responsible. Those four were responsible for more than $2.5 million in revenue
Wow.
at our shop at that time. And so it was a necessary decision to get on a proper cultural track to reflect the values that Rachel and I feel are important to us.
That's so great, Steve. So what were the immediate consequences, Steve? Did you have to jump in a truck yourself, and how did you rebuild?
It was funny, Alan. I remember facing the reality of it. I had one other plumber with me that had not been fired. That plumber at that point is now my general manager, Phil Bickley, a person of wonderful character, a person that I hired actually before he'd actually graduated from high school, helped train as an apprentice. And at that point, he was working as a plumber for us. We had two apprentices. So Philip and I began a schedule of 12 days on, two off. So each of us would work Monday through Friday. We would cover the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, and then we'd work the following Monday through Friday. And then the other plumber would take the weekend. So for more than 8 months, we were doing it ourselves. Those two apprentices were capable, and we reached them to a point where they could be independent in a truck. I think the soonest one went about 8 or 9 months after the big purge. But for the longest time, it seemed like Philip and I were shouldering it all ourselves. Long hours, high production, high demand. And I faced the reality of that challenge before I actually got back in the truck. And I remember just grinning from ear to ear at the challenge. And that feeling lasted for about one day
Yeah.
in the truck
Yeah.
because it got hard. It got hard real quick. But you guys are asking me questions from the other side. This was a huge pressure on Rachel too, because it did put us behind in our overhead. And although through this whole time we never missed a payroll, never have in all our history with Steve's Plumbing, but we were getting 30 days and 60 days to our creditors, and that kind of pressure was something that I didn't see as a consequence until months down the road, the pressure that put on Rachel. So she withstood that. I think it took us probably fully 3 years to recover from that setback to where we were reproducing the numbers that we had before, where we caught up with all of our creditors and were able to put more than six figures aside in the bank in reserves. But it was a pressured time. There were consequences to myself personally and pressures upon Rachel and I and her personally. We weathered that and we're stronger together now, but there's no doubt there were painful consequences. And as always, whenever one of my technicians comes up to me and asks me, how do I deal with this? Life is getting hard. And the answer is always become stronger. That's the only way to overcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to become stronger. And it was a tough time.
I'm
really
sure.
tough time.
I'm sure, Steve.
Steve, I remember around that time, which by the way, I was with you through that from the beginning to end. I was actually your personal coach, and I was coaching those men. And I think, if I recall, I raised the first flag, and I'm like, I don't know how to tell you this, but I think this is happening with this team member, and it wasn't drugs. It was a relationship, and researching that relationship sort of unraveled all of the other things, and I'm going, oh, great, Todd, what a great way to get fired.
Wow.
But you didn't, and I was there the whole time, and I've still been there. But going back, and you're talking about the pressure, and you say get tough. This was about the time that you started wearing the shirt TF, what toughen TFTU. You remember that? And I'm like, what does that shirt mean? And it was toughen the F up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah. That's a,
you were sort of wearing that shirt for I mean, it felt like I might see you with that shirt on once a week, and you're like, I got my shirt on. I'm toughing the F up. I'm toughing the F up, and you got tougher. So going back, I got to ask you this question: was that the best decision that you ever made to fire all those men?
it was one of the very best business decisions. So I'd categorize it that way as a business decision. It was absolutely necessary, and if not the very best decision I ever made in business. Absolutely had to be done.
So, Steve, you're growing again. How do you balance growth while protecting that culture that obviously you value so much?
We've become really hyper focused on culture, and sometimes both of you guys have been to professional meetings before, where you really sometimes you wonder why you're there, and then you realize it's just the value of an idea. And I attended a business meeting, and the speaker was a person that you both know and respect, Gus Santos. And Gus was giving a talk on the hiring practices of Chick-fil-A. So he used Chick-fil-A as an example, and how they basically hired people who reflected their values. And in fact, you couldn't just go out and buy a Chick-fil-A franchise. You had to be interviewed among thousands of applicants to make sure that you met the values of the owner of the franchisee. And they took that all the way down the hierarchy. So hiring even the lowest employee had to reflect all the values. And Gus put it really simply. He says, in a practical matter, he says, if you have to begin your day with one of your technicians and say, okay, don't steal today, or if you got to begin a conversation, all right, don't lie today, that's a failure. You're starting off at failure. And so if you don't trust the person's values, they shouldn't be in your company. And that created a huge churn in my mind. Well, how do we hire people that reflect our values? And so essentially, that's still a huge challenge for us today, but we're incredibly picky. And we've resorted to a system using both the DISC profile and another personality profiling system out there called the Culture Index. That helps us to narrow down a lot, but we're hyper focused on every new employee who comes. We religiously call all of their references, and we rely on a system. We found the greatest success with building the kind of people who reflect our values. If we get them at the apprentice level, ideally where they've never had exposure to another plumbing shop, then we can inculcate them in our values. We confirm that they share the values of honesty, integrity, diligence, they're willing to work. My promise to every employee, especially the apprentices that come through, is I can change your life. I can change your life to where you'll not only survive in these rough economic times, but you will thrive and you will grow. My greatest honor and privilege as an employer has been to see these men that I told that to, I will change your life, purchase homes and have children, get married, not in that order, and invite me to weddings. And I see the development of their lives. And they're able to thrive here in the Pacific Northwest, just outside of Seattle, where real estate costs are among the most exorbitant and outlandish in the country. And they're able to earn high six-figure incomes with full benefits. And I love that. I love that we're able to provide that. And we have a system, and a huge part of our system is assisted and supported by service excellence training. Todd Liles, service excellence training. We follow that format. We train our men every week in it still, and they reinforce the characteristics and behaviors that we want So that's been a huge part of it. Just constantly focusing on culture. And then when we see deviations from the culture, we confront it immediately. And we have very direct conversations with our men. And there are some cases where you cannot bring a person back in. Once they start to walk outside the line, you cannot bring them back in. And in those cases, then you still have to have the courage to fire them.
Yeah, yeah. And it's really hard to do, Steve. Been there and done that. It's very, very difficult to take, a $800,000 $1,200,000, guy and tell him you have to leave because you're not following our rules. But it's definitely necessary. So, Steve, I know you're at about 700,000 per truck, and you had a significant boost in your average ticket from 1168 to 1800. Talk to me about that average ticket. What drove that increase, Steve?
There was a funny thing, another business expo that I attended, different one entirely from the one with Gus, but another person that you both know and respect, Jimmy Dale. This was in 2023, in the fall of 2023. And I was trying to put together, from my position of oversight of my family, my business, all of my employees, and the country's economy, trying to project what was going to get us through 2024. And Jimmy put it very succinctly, and I thought perfectly. He said, in 2024, you are going to work harder for less money. And I thought, there it is. We need to drill down on the fundamentals, because we're all going to work harder for less money. And I thanked Jimmy for that in 2025, recently. And we did drill down, and we were only half right, though. We worked harder, and we all made more money. All of our employees earned more money. All of the company earned more money. And the reason that we were able to do that was because we drilled down on fundamentals. And I approach fundamentals differently now. We don't really allow any choice for people who want to deviate from our expectations. And so specifically, it drilled down on when a technician arrives at a customer's home, that technician will perform a full house inspection, to the point of the only way that he's not going to perform that full house inspection is if the customer declines it and the customer has to sign for it. And I said, fellas, if you disagree with this, if you don't think that it's necessary to perform a thorough inspection and spend a certain amount of time, a minimum amount of time I would suggest for a typical 3-bathroom house should be an hour to get through crawl spaces, basements, all the fixtures, all the exterior plumbing. The more time, the better. But then offer customers solutions, options of everything that you've seen, and have that discussion, literally opening up the menu. When we adopted this system, it was with the insistence. We gave the men a couple of months, I believe, from our introduction. We introduced it with Brandon Cockrell from Service Excellence Training, and we used another trainer incorporating his method and on-site timing. And we just let the technicians know, you don't have to agree with me to do this, but you do have to do this. And if you disagree with whether or not you're going to perform inspections, provide options, and establish that rapport and earn trust, then we can part ways today. And I let that hang. And that's, I think the difference now is that as I approach these issues, I really look at them as necessary for our survival. Not just my survival and Steve's Plumbing, but for the survival of my men. I promise them, we all got through, and by that, Alan and Todd and I, we all got through the Great Recession, the most difficult economic times seen since my grandfather was a plumber during the Great Depression. We all got through that because of the fundamentals upon which we drilled. And so now it's simply a matter of, if we have a new idea to implement, you will accept this idea and you will employ it in the field, or you will not be employed by Steve's Plumbing. It's just that simple. And I don't think I'm a jerk about it either. I let them know I love every single one of you. I've promised you change, but you will follow the direction of the company. And it's just that way. And so Following through that again, we let them slide for a couple of months. We would find out who was complying and who was eager about it and who was lagging behind. And so we supported, trained, and then we supported the ones who were falling behind and lifted them up too. And by and large, the entire company are on. And the success we see now, especially with our newest guys, is just phenomenal. But they've all got a great attitude about it. And at some point, that reinforces their trust in our leadership, too. We're not making these decisions just to eke out another penny. We're making these decisions to provide for their employment security.
Hmm.
That's great, Steve.
It becomes pretty apparent as we talk to wonderful people like Steve and Jimmy Dell and others that when you stop fearing the loss of money as a repercussion because you realize that you're protecting something greater that actually was the reason the money came in the first place, then it's a lot easier to make good decisions. But when you are fearing losing $1 million by letting one person go and you're concentrating on that, um, people can make decisions that aren't good for the long term perspective of the business. So just want to recognize that you're making good decisions that are not just about the dollar that's in front of you today, but it's actually about the health of the culture and everyone connected in the long run.
I think the more important thing, Todd and Steve, is we've had periods where we've let the top performer has quit or we've let top performers go. The thing is, the customers are not going anywhere. The
Mm,
opportunities are still going to be there. So if you have a well trained system, somebody is going to rise into that position of being that top performer. And it may take a while to get to the level of the previous guy, but I think your customers are not going anywhere. That's always been my philosophy. Don't get me wrong, it is scary. But I think if you adopt the philosophy that, hey, our customers haven't left us, the technicians left, we'll just continue to train and get the rest of the technicians to that level. And Steve has a very well defined culture and training system that allows him to do that. I think that's a secret. So
good deal.
Steve, many businesses struggle to keep profits strong, and you went through a period of profit drop last year when you typically average 12%. What happened last year?
Boy, last year, looking back, I can't say that there were a lot of blows. There were certainly a couple of blows in there, but we don't finance anything. So whenever we have an outlay, we determined that last year was a year of exceptional need for additional training. And so I think between three on-site visits, one from Service Excellence and two from Aaron B. Hunan's company, we probably invested over 100,000 in additional training on-site, direct, hands-on with our technicians. That was a big part of it. We also built a large training platform inside one of our warehouse spaces. One of our plumbers devotes a Saturday every 6 weeks to training our apprentices hands-on. So it's literally a framed structure that we can walk under and framed above that with walls so that we can do drain, waste, and vent, and water and training. So we're giving our technicians the proper framework that might be absent in another service company. We're just making sure that we cross all those T's and dot all those I's. We purchased a truck, a relatively new truck. There was a great value I saw. I was out in Utah. It was one that we wanted. Rather than finance it, we purchased it cash. So lots of cash outlays. And then, surprise, at the end of the year, some thieves shattered a window and got into our shop, did a fair bit of damage, and made out with about $45,000 worth of equipment. Insurance can make you whole, but the protective measures that we needed to take to ensure that that wouldn't happen again cost more than the loss of the equipment. We got the equipment back, but we realized we had to harden our facility and add security costs too. So that was a burden, probably over $50,000. So a lot of these big chunks that come as surprises, we're able to do because of the buffer that Todd instructed us more than a decade ago to set aside for emergencies like that. And so while we had lower profitability in 2024, I know that that's an aberration. We're continuing to grow our numbers, and we don't expect that number of surprises. And we're reinforcing training now, which is a lot less expensive than implementing the training at first.
Right.
So those were some of the things that got us last year, and we're off to a great start.
That's great. It's great to see.
That is great. So, as Alan mentioned earlier, you guys are averaging over $700,000 per truck. And from what I have seen is that it doesn't actually take you very long to take someone into the culture and then have them producing at that level relatively quickly. I know everybody that's watching and listening is asking themselves, how are you doing that? What's the secret? And I want you to talk about that. Address it from hiring to training to operations, from culture. In your own words, how do you get someone to 700,000 so quickly?
You know what? It helps to have leaders in your shop already. And going back to a point 10 years ago, then I had to be that example. I had to show guys where my numbers were modest, especially compared to what the guys are now. I was producing consistently over $50,000 a month 10 years ago. That's what we would call a crown champion level today, but it's literally half what my top producer does today. And so it helps to have a leader that somebody can focus to and say, okay, that can be done. But the other thing, of course, once we've confirmed values, once we've got good workers, and I got a couple of great examples of our two most recent plumbers in the field, then they attach to our plumbers. So we typically keep a 2-to-1 ratio. We've got twice as many plumbers as we do apprentices at any given time. So the apprentices are always in high demand. They're always fully booked. The apprentices will be paid by the hour, but they will always have at least 10 hours of overtime in the work. And they have a rotation on the weekend. Now, that's about the closest thing to a grind of an apprenticeship that we can make. I know something about Alan's apprenticeship from when he was a young man in Ireland, and I know that apprenticeships there at the same time as my apprenticeship here were deliberately attempts to weed people out. Well, we don't hit anybody anymore. We're not berating them the way that they used to. But we do work these guys. So we make sure that they understand that 7:30 is the start time, and that's the only guaranteed time. If we have an apprentice who shows signs of wavering or flagging at 4:30 in the afternoon, 5:30, and maybe still has to do another call, that apprentice can suck the wind out of a room and he's gone. We're going to go to the next guy. We're going to see guys that have stamina for those 10 and 12-hour days because that's often what the service industry demands. So they get the time. Now, we support them with technical training. So for the first 6 to 9 months of their experience with us, they're working hands-on with all the men. They've got every 6 weeks in the shop. They're rotating through all of the plumbers so they understand the skills and approaches of lots of different personalities and styles. And then we put them into the training with you, Todd. We put them in on the service excellence training the last 2 to 3 months prior to their ascending into the truck. So now they know every aspect of it. And by the time we've gotten them through a year, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, they're hungry. They're chomping at the bit. They want to get out there in the field. And we've seen the success when we get the right person. A 19-year-old kid with the energy and stamina that goes with the age comes to us, and by the time he's 20, certainly before he's 21, he's out in a truck. Had 2 great examples. One young fellow named Charlie, raised on a farm, and just from discussing Charlie's home life with him and how he was raised by his father, I could tell, okay, you understand task orientation. This is an hourly compensated position temporarily until you're in a truck, but you understand the importance of finishing a task. When you're on a farm, you don't have a choice of, do I round up all the cows today or just some of the cows? You always round up all the cows, right? And so I knew Charlie would be a good fit. When we put Charlie out, he was instantly right out of the gate, $70 to $90,000 a month producer. And another young man that I got first came to me a little over 2 years ago, and Stan walks in. He could barely speak English. He's Ukrainian, but he'd worked as a repiping remodeling contractor for someone else, and he said he had no interest in our approach of sales and installation. He wanted to stay as far away from sales as possible. And I said, Stan, I've always wanted to have an install crew. So I can tell you match our values. I promise that I will employ you and I will elevate your hourly wage and compensation, and you will lead our install crew. You'll be in your own truck. You'll also train your own people, and I will give you that. I will develop a department around you. Well, about 6 months before we put him in the field, he comes to me and says, I've changed my mind. I don't want to be an install guy. I've seen what these guys can make, and I want to do that. And so I said, Stan, I kind of saw that coming, and we're happy to have you, and we will do everything that we can to support. Now, Stan was 19 when I met him and barely spoke English, and he's been with us now almost 2 years. Speaks English fluently because of his exposure to our company. But if you lined him up in a high school photograph, you couldn't pick him out from the sophomores. He can barely grow facial hair. English is still his second language. And in his first quarter, his first 3-month period with Steve's Plumbing, he produced $297,000 in revenue. Now, you guys just did the math instantly. His first year in plumbing, he will be a $1.2 million producer minimum, and he's getting better. He typically averages around 40% conversion on his club memberships, always bonuses. He's just a delight to have around. Great, clean-cut kid. Charlie and Stan are our two newest. And here's something that can happen. If you are developing your system and your system is getting better, and then you have guys like this come up, that can create friction with some of your older guys who might be sitting on their laurels with a $700,000 or $800,000 number. And we've had to go through some of that pain too. But we're happy with the system. We'll continue to cultivate that primarily. So right now I've got one of my apprentices that will go into a truck for the first time in April, and I'm super proud of this guy. There are so many things about his background that would be perceived as strikes against him. He's in his late 20s, and he has 6 kids already, and at least 2 of them have serious health problems. And when I hired Dylan, then I made him the promise to, I can change your life. We've kept him in the apprenticeship a little bit longer so that the learning curve of plumbing would not be at odds with the increased stress of the independence of a plumber. But I'm really proud. And in fact, he's going to be coming to one of your trainings, I think, in the first week in May.
Awesome.
And he'll be in a truck in April. But this kind of system always requires additional replenishment, right? Dylan will make our 9th plumber in the field. That's going to leave us short of apprentices. We've already made 1 hire, but to keep the ratios right, we need to have at least 2 more. And 2 of our current apprentices I know will be in a truck in the fall, no later than September, October. So it's a constant replenishment, but instead of hiring plumbers off the street, something that we haven't really had great luck with, we're focusing on finding those green kids, and they've got to meet the humble, hungry, smart. Humble is too often used today in society as a pejorative term. That's a bad trait. We don't want meek people. We don't want humble people. Humble at its root simply means that they're teachable. Can I teach this person? And part of teaching means correction. How do they take correction? And how do they advance? So in the 3 cases I just mentioned, Dylan, Charlie, and Stan, those kids were all humble because we've had to correct them many times. And yet they've improved stellar after everyone. And then hungry. I think hungry is often, that's like the most important part. These people have to want to change their lives. If they think they're going to change their lives with a 40-hour week doing anything in America other than selling drugs, they're out of their minds. That's not what we offer. This is hard, especially at its start. Humble and hungry and smart. We have a high demand intelligent system. They've got to be able to have a social level of communication and understanding of the customers. They've got to interpret those customers in front of them in seconds. They've got to mechanically recognize solutions and options and learn how to present those. They've got to cultivate our service agreements, or what we call our diamond clubs. All of those things are essential to the company. Those are high demand. They require smart people, humble, hungry, and smart. And we just drive forward with that. It allows us to focus on keeping a recruiting base for apprentices alive. And we keep account of the ones that we would like to hire but don't necessarily have room for. But we can see that with our system, accelerating the hiring process for those green apprentices is going to have to come at a faster pace.
What I love about what you're saying, Steve, and what I love about what he's saying, Alan, is that your approach to apprenticeship is truly apprenticeship. I think the word has been moved into something that isn't actually apprenticeships. This is your chance to learn, to be put through the paces, to have to work really hard and earn the right to be a plumber at Steve's Plumbing. Not just a plumber, but a plumber at Steve's Plumbing. And
Yeah.
that's the way apprenticeships were for a long time. Even in the Japanese culture and really, really, really high-end sushi restaurants, you will learn how to make rice for 7 years before they ever let you pick up a knife.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of Americans that are diligent like that anymore. They may go to college for 4 years, but it's not hard work. It's about partying.
I personally think, Todd, it's about we have a culture in this country, all over the world probably, of instant gratification, right? They want to learn quickly and make lots of money quickly. I can relate to what Steve's saying because some of the best plumbers at Abacus are homegrown. Like we have brought them up through the apprenticeship program, and they do it the Abacus way, we call it. It's the way we've taught them. They do it that way. But I think it's admirable, Steve. We were talking earlier to Jimmy Dale, and Jimmy was talking about the sense of satisfaction he gets from seeing high school students that are being written off coming in and becoming plumbers and air conditioning techs and electricians that make six figures. And it's something I've always said is that of all the awards and all the accolades that we may have gotten throughout the years, for me, the best reward of all is seeing a kid that was a failure in high school. He comes in, we teach him a trade that he's going to have for the rest of his life, and he's making six figures. He's buying a car. He's sending his kids to college, whatever it might be. It's to me, there's no better satisfaction than that. So I think it's very admirable. That's how you're doing it, Steve. What systems or tools do you rely on to track and improve performance, Steve, at Steve's Plumbing?
Simple KPIs. I know that there are literally dozens of things that we could track out there, but the ones that I look at on a daily basis are the number of technicians and opportunities, the number of those opportunities that they convert to our maintenance agreement, our club membership. Then I want to see their average ticket, and I want to see their revenue for the month. And with those insights, I realize that's only 4, but with those key insights, I can tell if everything is okay. I know the performance level of all of my techs.
Yeah.
I monitor them on a daily basis, and I can see inside their minds and hearts. I can see if something has changed. I can see if a top performer is now not closing any diamond clubs of his opportunities. If his numbers are going down, I can see all the options that they present to the customer. And I know, okay, it's time for a conversation. It used to always be me that had to have those conversations. Now I have 2 great managers with me, so we share that responsibility. But we're all aware from those fundamental KPIs what to look for the performance of our guys. And everybody, even your best guy, is going to have down periods. And you have to understand those. In some cases, it might be as simple as, well, you mentioned that we can take guys who are failures at high school. I often look at my guys and I say, what I'm about to present is a complex idea, and I realize that none of you are here because you were stars in high school. None of us were suited for academics. We were drawn to a trade where we could construct things, and that's how we got satisfaction. So sometimes you look at a guy, and it might be just as simple as, yeah, he forgot. He literally forgot to bring up this thing that was a habit for him for months, and that simple reminder will get him back on track. And other times you might find things that you have to deal with more delicately. You might find personal problems in their life or with their marriage or with their parents or with stresses and finances. And in those cases, then we're there to assist too. And we always introduce it, we're not here to pry, but maybe there's something about your situation that I can assist with. And if there is, and if they're accepting to that, then we offer that too. So at a company our size, we are still really just very, very much like, it's an overused analogy, we are very much like a big family. And we're a family who know a lot more about each other than we should, probably. But we offer that kind of assistance, and I don't know how I could be a business owner without it, because they're not just numbers, they're all people. And they're all people that face to face, I tell them, I love you, and I'll do anything for you. I'll do anything within my power and within the values of my business for you. And all I ask is that you give me the same.
Yeah, I think, Steve, I often look back on Abacus from the start of the business to today, and people ask me, what was the most fun time in the growth? Like, what was your favorite period? And I think for me, the favorite period was, we were at about 30 employees. We were doing 9 million sales, and I knew every single person. I knew their spouse's name. I knew their kids' names. Like, it was a family. It was a big family, but it was a family. And then soon after that, we got bigger and bigger, and then you're seeing people in the uniform, and you don't even know who they are. Like, so it's a different kind of business. But what you're saying about knowing the people, and maybe too well at times, I can definitely relate to, Steve. But it actually is making the hair stand up on the back of my neck a little bit, because I love that so much. It's such a great feeling that you're changing people's lives, and not just their lives, you're actually changing their family tree. Like, you're making a difference for generations to come, hopefully. So I think it's really cool, Steve. A
Thank
few
you.
years ago, Steve, yourself and Rachel made a decision to develop leaders so you could step away from daily operations. And I know today you enjoy more freedom to travel. So what was that turning point when you realized you needed to develop leaders instead of managing everything yourself?
You know, I wish there were a guideline, and I know that someday you two will be getting to the point where you have simple instructions and layouts for people. But for me, it was always, I was basically forced out of the truck by the frequency and the demand of decisions that needed to be made outside of the truck. I couldn't be in the truck anymore and still answer the demands that were on me as a plumber. So I became our first manager. Gradually, there become too many management decisions as you have people, and I realized, okay, at this point I need someone to assist in those decisions with me, and then recognizing too where my talents lie. As you saw when I tried to sign up for this podcast, I do not have any aptitude for technology, and yet technology is taking over our industry. Our men are out there with iPads today, something that none of us would have predicted 30 years ago. But the depth of that technology, now that goes to not just the technology, but your pricing guides, your customer records, your CSRs, the warehouses, how you requisition equipment, how you replace equipment, how you standardize equipment inside technicians' trucks, how you learn what you need to keep in your warehouse so that your cash outlay is not too great for that point. All of those things I realized, those are not my aptitudes. My aptitudes are are leadership, instruction, inspiration, and support, and sales. Those are almost all social things. None of my talents lie in any aptitude with technology. And before the technology was implemented, if you want to know what my personal kryptonite was, my personal kryptonite was a 1-inch thick stack of paperwork. Rachel would sometimes give me invoices, a stack that I would need to enter all the data into Successware at the time. Oh my God, that was just like torture. I'm sure what would have been 15 minutes of work for someone with aptitude and discipline was like an afternoon for me. I just
Right.
hated it, just repelled by it. So I learned that there are people with high levels of intelligence and, most importantly, aptitudes for my weaknesses. And so that led to our hiring of an office manager and a general manager, and most recently, a service manager. And the level of freedom that they give me is in proportion, a direct proportional ratio to my trust in them. So once I've determined that they have the aptitude and talent, they have a long leash. I may have questions. I have managerial meetings on a weekly basis, once a week only. I have conversations with my managers every day, but those conversations aren't questioning them. They're not looking over their shoulder. They're not micromanagement. I trust that these people have high levels of intelligence in areas that are different from mine. And so trusting in their intelligence and their abilities gives Rachel and I the freedom to do what we want, so that when we leave for 3 weeks or a month, every time that we've done that recently, especially in the last 2 years, things have gotten better. They did better than when we were there. So what does that tell me? Maybe I'm worse than non-essential. Maybe I'm really not
Uh,
wanted.
uh, it's so funny, Steve, because I think you might be my brother from another mother, because I have the same type of skill set you have, and also when I wanted sales to improve, I just went away for a couple of weeks and things usually got better. So I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you.
So Steve, you've done a really good job of identifying that you want to hire people that have strengths that you don't have. You've talked about hungry, humble, smart. You've hired an office manager, general manager, service manager. So you've sort of answered the question I was going to ask. So I'm going to ask a slightly different question. Who's the next leadership role in your company that you think you'll hire, and why?
At this point, and again, I had this conversation with my general manager, Philip, just last week. And I said, honestly, Philip, I'm flying by the seat of my pants here. The guidance that I get from service excellence training, from you personally, and from friends like Alan and Jimmy and Gus, whom I've mentioned, that's vital to my growth. And so observationally, I think that what we need for the next stage of our growth late in 2025 or early in 2026 will be another service manager. What I like from our service managers is the ability to be on site and present with our techs, visiting at least 2 to 3 technicians on site, engaging with those customers, letting the customers know, hey, this is an additional level of supervision and support provided by Steve's Plumbing at no extra cost to you. We care so much about our performance of our technicians in the field that management visit them on a daily basis. I would like to have one manager for every 6 technicians in the field. And so right now, Philip and Ryan, my other service manager, and I share the duties of the load of the 8 plumbers that we have, 9 soon. It'll be 11 before the end of the year. Sometime 2025 end of or 2026, I expect I'll need another service manager. That would be the next position I think that we would hire. And the service managers are salaried and they're commission incentivized to add to the sales of the technicians. But most recently, our service manager, our most recent hire, Ryan, I don't think either of you guys have ever met Ryan. A wonderful person, came with a level of technological aptitude. He's actually employing ChatGPT in development of the technicians' bullet points. So while a technician might be able to go through their bullet points, remember these are guys who didn't pass English in high school first time. So ChatGPT really helps them. They can make bullet points of the items that they've observed in the field. They can orally recite those into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT generally makes beautiful, logical, full paragraph descriptions of the options that they deliver to my customers. Because while there might not be any difference in the work, one technician might be prompted to leave a 2-sentence description of a $10,000 job. With ChatGPT and my service manager's support, they've developed that into about a page and a half of detailed description. Now the customer has much more real sense of value. It's tangible now, because my technician's aptitude might not be a long, detailed description in support of the $10,000 value that they sold. So now there's not only better value being provided, but there's a better perception of value for the customer who may not have been present when we did all of the work. But it's absolutely essential so that they have a record of it too. And as you guys both know, so much of our work gets buried or it's in inaccessible places. And so really all the customer has ultimately of the record is the photographs we took and that written description. And the better the photographs, the better the written description, the better. And that's what we've instructed our service managers to do.
That's awesome. Well, mi amigo, I have been to Hawaii with you and with Rachel, and I think that we're contemplating a trip to Ireland
Yes.
to go hang out with Alan here in the summertime. And I'm definitely coming in September with my friends from Australia. Bottom line is that we're doing lots of fun things, and now I want to shift the conversation into escaping the day to day, getting to a level of freedom to where you have a successfully operating company that is growing, but you're not necessarily bound to it all the time. So, step one in breaking free is what? What is step one, Steve?
You have to trust your people. You have to put implicit trust that things will run in your absence. That's really step one. I think that all business owners have a control issue. They want to control every decision. They want to be a part of every decision. At some point in your growth, you have to assign that trust to someone else so that you can have the freedom to step away and enjoy it.
Thank you.
Steve, I know Maui is probably your favorite place in the world. It's my favorite place in the world too, and I know you're fortunate enough to own a condo in Hawaii. Tell me about how you feel when you go to Maui and how you feel. Like, is that a home away from home for you, Steve?
It really is. Todd's been to our place, and someday, Alan, I hope you'll come to our place. It really is modest. We would liken our complex to like a very nice quality apartment building. Not terribly fancy. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, but it's on a golf course facing west. After a recent storm, it cleared out a bunch of trees, and so now I have bigger gaps of the ocean. And it's just a restful place. I get a feeling when I'm wheeling my suitcase in to the place, I'm at home. I'm in a different place. And I understand that the purpose of that place is restoration. And I wouldn't get that restoration if I were still hyper-focused on the daily comings and goings of the business. So I do let that go. The last trip that we took there, we were gone for 4 weeks. We've done that now a couple of years running. And I'll check in on Wednesdays. That's the days that I know all of my technicians and management are together. But unless there's a fire that needs to be put out, and sometimes there is. We've had a couple of surprises thrown in there. As you guys know, employees who are prone to misbehavior are going to misbehave more likely when you're
The
away.
cat's away.
than when
Yeah.
you're there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that does come up. But otherwise, the restful purpose of it, the nature of the vacation isn't fulfilled unless I can really separate from it. And so Rachel pursues her rowing. She's got a gym there that They basically comp her the membership, and she does rowing instruction for their classes at the
Nice.
CrossFit gym there. She's got great relationships with those people, so it provides her that. I love to spend as much time underwater as possible. This last trip, I think I got 24 hours underwater scuba diving, and I learned free diving a few years ago, and I love that just as much. And snorkeling in the beach in the afternoons, just that restful nature of it. It's just a wonderful place.
It is, Steve. It's, you know, I'm not getting weird here, but I find it a little bit spiritual.
Mm.
Like, I remember we were in at Tommy Bahamas one night in Maui. There was a guy playing a guitar, and I got into a conversation with him when he was finished playing, and I said to him, you know, there's something about when I step on Maui, like spiritually, I feel like I'm connected in some way. And he launched into this thing about the afterlife, and it got way weird. But like, there is something very special and spiritual about Maui that just makes, like, instills a feeling in me that I don't get anywhere else. So I'm totally a fan, Steve. You know.
Alan, do you
I
know
love it.
that across the Polynesian culture, all the way to Tahiti, where a lot of the belief is that that's where a lot of the Hawaiians originated from, that if you go to Tahiti, when they die, even all the way down to the Maori people south of Australia in New Zealand, that Maui is heaven. That's where you go. Did
Mhm.
you know that?
I did not know that,
Did
but
you
it
know that,
doesn't surprise
Steve?
me a bit. Yeah,
I didn't know
yeah.
that.
Yeah, so the over the rainbow is a sort of a spiritual thing. You do go over the rainbow, and you end up spiritually resting in Maui.
Yeah.
So, hey, there are stranger things in the world,
Absolutely.
but I will
Absolutely.
tell you this: since I've been to Maui, my children make fun of me on a regular basis, and it's because of what both of you guys are saying. And my daughter will go, "Hawaii changed me," making fun of me. Maui, I long for the beach.
It's
Yeah, I get that.
it's a
I get
special
that
place.
far
Yeah.
too
Yeah.
often, and I'm like, you haven't been. You don't understand.
Steve, what do you think was the hardest part of stepping back and trusting the team? Like, did you find it hard?
Yeah, that's been hard for all the years that I've been a business owner. So when we established the company in 1995, I'd been plumbing like you, very close to, I think you started before me, Alan, but I started in 1977.
That's the year I
And
started, Steve, believe it or not.
same year.
Yeah, 12th of May,
And
1977 was my first day, Steve.
Yeah, two years
wow.
after that, I was born.
Yeah, wow. Okay, make us feel old, Todd. Make us feel old. Yeah.
But it's so funny for all of the years that I worked in Texas. I moved up here in 1986, and then from 86 to 95, that 9 year period, any other companies that I worked for, I did everything alone. Everything. I never had an apprentice with any other company that I worked with. I never directed other men. There was literally no time until I opened my own business that suddenly I had to learn how to direct other men. I subcontracted a lot of labor in those first years, 95 to 2006, when we joined a service organization where we met Todd Liles. In that period, I had to learn how to direct men, but I'd say still one of the greatest challenges is how do I tell people what to do? And then what should I tell people to do? And one of the things I've learned from Todd is the value of my time. We once went through a mathematical analog of what my time is really worth, and I realized I should delegate almost everything, except for those decisions that require my particular aptitude and talents. And so, really, Alan, the hardest thing for me to learn has been to do that, to delegate to people all that is necessary, and that in return has become more rewarding. It's counterintuitive, but it's actually made my business more profitable and made my people more productive at the same time. So multiple benefits just from learning what my position should be. I shouldn't be in there second guessing the operations of my CSR office. I shouldn't be in there second guessing Philip and his structure of our inventory process or pricing book. I should ask questions and learn when I need to, but I should learn what's our next step, what's our vision for 2025, 2026, and moving on into the future.
That's great, Steve. Steve, I know you also spent 21 days in Nepal on a trek. What was that experience like, and knowing your business was running without you at the same time?
That was early on. So I did that trek uh, in late 2019
Wow.
because I recall at the end of our trek, we were just getting first reports of COVID deaths in Washington, and they actually shut down a return pathway for our flight from Nepal. We were going to fly back through Hong Kong, and we weren't allowed to. Closed down, had to fly out through Dubai. So that was the time frame, 2019. Now we're in 2025. But a friend of mine who's my CrossFit coach and a dear friend for many years just tapped me on the shoulder. Jesse's the highest level of CrossFit coaching. He's been around since day one, and he's had opportunity to travel all through the world. And this one connection was this opportunity to visit Nepal and visit under the guidance of the family who actually coordinated all of the tours of Nepal through Recreational Equipment Incorporated, REI. And so the answer always has to be yes, right? If you're trying to stretch, if you're trying to grow. And I had wanted to visit Nepal. I had a close friend, still have this close friend, who was my roommate in Austin in the early 80s. John was from Australia. He would work with me for a few months, save up money, and then he'd go to Mexico for like 6 months. Then he'd come back and he'd work with me as a helper, and he would go to Britain. He'd go to tour the entire UK. And the last trip where I finally lost track with him, he went to actually Tibet and Nepal. And I always thought I should have gone with him. He invited me every single time, but that was just John's nature. He went back to Australia, got his barrister's license, became an attorney, built a family, did great. So that was an inspiration. So when I had the opportunity, Jesse says, well, you want to go to Nepal? The answer was yes before I even knew 100% that it should be yes. I came home and talked to Rachel, and she said, you should go. I have no desire to go. Nepal has not very good bathrooms. And that's a So we trained for months. We went on lots of 5 to 15 mile day hikes. We did hikes at elevation. We hiked up to Camp Muir on the top of Mount Rainier. And we did miles and miles of stairs. We'd find stairs and we'd pack on 20-pound vests and 20 pounds of ankle weights. And so with 40 pounds, we would do multiple stair climbs. And so we trained for this, and we still got there. And the first day we're in Kathmandu, it's about 5,000 feet. When we started our trek, we're going up to 9,000 feet the first day. You're winded and you think, how can I ever adapt to this? But after about a week, your body makes this adaptation where more red blood cells appear in your bloodstream, your oxygen capacity increases, and then you feel a level of fitness, and it just kind of clicked with all of us. I can do this forever if I need
Wow.
to. I feel good.
It's incredible.
So we never got over 14,000 feet. Unfortunately, we didn't get to visit the base camp itself because of avalanches that were occurring and wiping out tourists. But we got very close to 14,000 feet, spent a lot of time in that 12 to 14 range above the snow line, where we've got a sheer precipice that we're walking across this ridge, and literally 1,000-foot drops on both sides through the clouds. You can't see it. And you talk about spiritual and magical. I think that by nature, the Nepalese are a very spiritual people. There are signs to their Buddhist worship everywhere you go. And we found that very calming. It was a wonderful presence, and the lack of technology, the lack of industry in these places, to spend 21 days up there and to see people plowing fields with water buffalo under a yoke, to see people without hot water in their homes. They had slate roofs that were held together with a cement mortar of turmeric.
Wow.
So the spice that you used, turmeric, was actually the mortar that held everything together.
Could you smell it?
Unfortunately, that stone and slate construction is very poor for earthquakes, and it's a seismically active area. So it was just pictorially and spiritually and physically such a fulfillment. And Kathmandu was a circus, man. It's just like a giant garage sale, bustling, millions of people. And by their custom, they typically incinerated their dead. And we're downtown and there's smoke coming from this section. Oh, they're burning their dead over there. And we hiked up to monuments and religious places that were thousands of monkeys and incredible food. It was a wonderful place and good friends, good relationships. I still talk with my guide every couple of months, a person that we got to know really well over there. And so that's a place I would love to go back.
And warm,
And
right? Very warm.
it was, and it was not warm where we're trekking. One of these places we get in, our boots are wet. We've probably done 13 miles that day, probably somewhere in the range of 3 to 4,000 foot elevation gain. We get there, our boots are wet, and there's a huge fire. And I look above this fire, and there are two pipes that are coming up there. And as I look kind of under the hood, directing the smoke away, there's a coil in there. And I realized this is an indirect water heater.
Wow.
This is how they get hot water. So the cold water, just by a natural direction of the cold, drops down. The heated water, the convection causes the
Rises
hot
up,
water to
yeah.
rise.
Very cool.
Without a pump system, that convection circulates it. And he says, "You guys want to take a shower?" "Yeah, we'd all love to take showers." And so he opens a valve and it begins the convection process and it circulates through there. And you could take brief warm showers, but most of those people had no hot water.
Wow.
And very humble, very interesting, very beautiful.
Very
Yeah.
cool, Steve.
Steve, I've heard you say that that to you, success isn't just about revenue; it's about designing a life that you want, and you and Rachel have done that. So, what's one piece of advice that you would give someone that feels like they're just doing business, they're not doing life?
Well, I got a question to clarify it. Should their business afford them this freedom?
I think so.
I think so too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if their business should afford them that freedom, then they should approach it with a sense of urgency. And I think I've spoken to you personally about the sense of urgency that I felt when I went to Nepal, when I've undertaken different athletic adventures, different cycle routes across the nation. I felt this incredible urgency. And now I feel that urgency even more. But I think that it's probably related to my perception of my mortality and the limitations that physically I'm going to face as I get older. There's a certain window of time where we have this opportunity to do things like trek in Nepal for 21 days, or learn to free dive over 100 feet, or to cycle 3 mountain passes in Colorado in a day. There will be a time when I cannot do those things. And I felt the urgency to train and perform and do those things as a part of our life's adventure. And Rachel and I's interests somewhat overlap, but she has her own specific interests, and I've become her biggest fan. I'm designated biggest fan. I actually have a sweatshirt, I think, that says that. I'm her fan. And so in her pursuits, I'll go see her regattas. I'll watch her in world competitions. We'll travel together, and she supports mine. And together, we both have a love for travel, and we try to incorporate our athletic interests in those things. But I would say that people need to recognize their mortality somewhere along the way. And if life doesn't give you any reminders, then maybe the reminder I got a couple of years ago would help. Out of all that, in that sense of urgency, pursuing and customizing a life, I had a heart attack, and it came out of the blue. My obsessive study that I've shared with you a lot in the last 2 years has shown that I have a condition called FH, stands for familial hypercholesterolemia. So that means that while the three of us could eat the same food, my body's going to do some different and very dangerous things with it that relate to my cardiovascular and arterial system. So even while I was at my healthiest, very low body fat percentage, around 13 to 14%, very strong, very fit, doing some incredible physical feats for my age, 61 years old at the time, I had a heart attack because my arteries were closing off from the deposits of LDL cholesterol. And that has reconfirmed my sense of urgency. I still pursue those things to the degree that I can under the limits of my recovery and my medication. But it punctuated the urgency of the situation. It's done a couple of things. One, it's made me realize all these other things, all these other places, all these other people that I want to see and experience and do, I have a very limited window of time. That's the urgency. And I have that same urgency with my business now too. I look at when we implement a new idea, okay, I'm going to understand that the 22 people that I'm responsible for are resistant to change. They don't necessarily like that. So I'm going to give them a reasonable window of time to adapt to that change. But we are going to make the change. And so that's where the urgency has affected my business. It's made me more determined, and I approach the demands and our expectations very much more directly to their benefit as well as ours. You know our mission statement, and that's a win for the technician, a win for the client, and a win for the company. And everything that we do, every change that we make is not burdensome to any of those. Ultimately, it elevates the performance of everyone. But if a business owner is feeling trapped, if their business can support them while they're away, they should absolutely do that out of the urgency of the fact that they could find themselves too old to experience those things. What really hit it at home was a cruise that I took. And haven't done a lot of cruises. I think I've only done 2. But I went on a cruise, and it struck me the number of people in the line at a restaurant who were on walkers or wheelchairs.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I don't want to lose my mobility.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. And I may still lose it. I could have another heart attack. I could have another cardiac episode or cancer or any of the other horsemen that take us out of this life. But for as long as I possibly can, I'm going to approach life with the urgency and the desire for the experiences that I have out there. Because my personal religious and philosophical system is, this is it. And I'm going to capitalize on my experience here.
Great answer, Steve. Steve, my next question was going to be what's next for Steve's Plumbing and for you personally, but you've kind of told us. So what does success mean to you beyond money, Steve?
Really, it comes down to the satisfaction of knowing that we've built this thing that, yes, it was to serve and impact a community, but really my first love are my frontline people. And I greet them every day, every CSR, all my managers, all my men, my genuine love for them. I could not do this business. I couldn't sleep every night unless I knew that I were giving them a platform for which to change their life. And now I know very comfortably we have done that, and we're going to continue to do that. And it will continue. Their success will continue to grow as long as we're continuing to grow this business. So really, that's what drives me now. I don't really know from day to day what I make. I know that Rachel compensates me very generously. I do see the P&L. We recently restructured our tax designation, so I understand now what I'm being paid. But really, the money's just not real to me. That's not what gets me going. It's keeping this system sustained and keeping it moving forward. Whatever moves the ship forward, whatever grows the revenue, expands our footprint, edifies our presence in the community, solidifies the security of my people. Those are all the things that are meaningful to me.
Excellent, Steve. Steve, it's been great. Please say hello to Rachel for us.
Yeah.
Haven't seen her in a while, but it was great to catch up with you and get some thoughts and ideas from you. Thank you.
And thank you very much, brother. And you know I love you, and I'm happy you're in my life.
I love you both and respect you both so much, and I continue to learn from you both, and I know that will continue for a long time. I'm grateful to both of you.
Thank you, Steve, and good luck with the health, Steve. You're doing all the right things, I'm sure. So, hopefully you stay healthy. I'll be praying for you.
Hey, thanks so much for watching the show this week. Head over to toddliles.com/mindset to get the show notes. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you never miss a new episode of the show. And if you enjoyed this episode, then share it. It really helps us get the word out. You've been watching the $100 Million Mindset with Alan O'Neill and True Grit Todd Liles.